Hi guys, welcome back. We are on chapter 14, or Memelose stories. So we know that a Memelose is a ghost or a spirit that's haunting someone. So, it might be like a scary chapter. Don't be surprised if you don't hear Sophie in the background. She's taking a bath, but she likes to make a lot of noises and sing. So it's not a Memelose in the background. Okay, here we go. The snow fell thick and fast, the wind whipping it now and then, catching it, sending it swirling through the air. We were all freezing. My calico dress and cape were no match for this weather. Jehu's face looked grim. "We can't just stay here," I said desperately. "We'll die out in that snow. That's a blizzard," said Jehu. "We have enough food to last a week. If we can just hold out that long, we'll be fine. Early snow like this, I reckon it'll melt fast." Cruxo nodded in agreement. "What if it doesn't?" I whispered, terrified at the thought of being stuck in a cave in the mountains. "What if we never get out of here?" "Then we'll die with the smell of skunk in our noses," Jehu half joked. "This is serious, Jehu." I caught sight of paw-like indentations in the snow in front of the cave. "And what are those?" I demanded. Cruxo crouched down. "Lilou." "Lilou?" I considered for a moment. Le loup meant wolf in French. I snapped my fingers triumphantly. "Wolf," I announced, and then went pale. "Wolf?" I whispered. "Smoke scare wolf," Cruxo said. The wind shifted, blowing past me to Cruxo. "Or maybe Boston Jane scare wolf," he said, wrinkling his nose. I didn't even dignify his comment with an answer. The morning passed slowly, marked only by the accumulation of snow. I tried to pretend that the cave was merely our parlor at home, except of course it was cold and dark, reeked of skunk, and was teeming with insects. I can hardly believe I attended Miss Hepplewhite's Young Ladies' Academy all those years to end up in a filthy cave, I muttered irritably, drawing in the dirt with a stick. I stretched and banged my head on the cave roof. "Ow!" Jehu raised an eyebrow. "To think I had the fare for a voyage home, which I still say I should have taken." McCarty didn't know what he was talking about. Mr. Black was a true gentleman. "Mr. Black? Maybe he is Memelose gentleman," Cruxo joked. "Whether Black's a Memelose or not, I don't know," said Jehu. "But we're stuck here now, that's certain." He leaned back stretching, and Miss Hepplewhite can be washed out with the bilge for all I care. I ignored him. "I do know a thing or two about Memeloses, you know," Jehu added mysteriously. Cruxo and I both stared at Jehu, curious. "And I can tell you the story of Fanny Neal, if you can care to hear it." Cruxo nodded and leaned forward. "Tell story." "It's a true story." Jehu crossed his legs and stared into the fire. "Fanny Neal," he sighed, "was the prettiest girl on Cape Cod." So Cape Cod is on the East Coast. Unaccountably, I felt a twinge of irritation at the way he said her name. "Did you know her?" "You'll have to listen and find out," he said, his eyes taunting me. "See, Fanny had this long, beautiful hair, like spun silk. It was the color of gold, and it was said that if you carried one of Fanny's lockets in your pocket, you'd have a good sea voyage." He patted his pocket as if he carried a strand in there himself. I pictured Fanny Neal in the cave, her hair falling around her shoulders like a cape, her eyes only for Jehu. Someone's jealous. Jehu's voice seemed to grow softer, mixing with the wind humming outside the cave. Fanny Neal fell in love with a sailor, and they pledged their troth to each other. I felt a particular clenching sensation in my chest. The sailor was set to ship out on a voyage, and so they agreed that they would marry upon his return. Each day Fanny walked along the beach, looking for her beloved's ship to return. There was a terrible storm, and the rain battered the seas. Ship after ship was reported sunk, but Fanny Neal never lost hope. Still she walked the beach, waiting for her sailor. His voice lowered an octave, and the fire flickered. And then one day word came that her lover's ship had sunk, and all hands were lost. I looked into Jehu's eyes, remembering the terrible storm we had survived to arrive at Shoalwater Bay, and knew all too well how cruel fate could be. My maid, Mary, and the cabin boy, Samuel, had died during that storm. "What happened?" Cruxo asked. Jehu shook himself. Fanny was heartbroken. She couldn't bear to live without her sailor, so she threw herself into the sea and drowned. I gasped. But then, 2 weeks later, her sailor returned. He had managed to survive by clinging to a piece of wood. That, and the sure knowledge that his Fanny was waiting for him, kept him alive. When he found out that she had killed herself, He went down to the place where she had drowned and wept and wept. And there, on the sand, was a long, thick lock of her hair, except it had turned green, become part of the sea itself. Seaweed, whispered Cruxo. Jehu nodded. And it said that you can always find Fanny Neal's hair after a storm, for she's mourning and tearing her hair out for the sailor that she lost so long ago. The cave was quiet for a moment, and then there was a soft wailing sound on the wind, like weeping. Jehu's eyes met mine and held. What if we were lost at sea? What would I do? What if he were lost at sea? What would I do? I know Memelose's story, Cruxo announced, breaking the quiet. I swallowed hard and said, please tell us. All Chinook know, very bad luck to have bones of dead person near house, and worse luck to have skull of enemy near house, Cruxo explained. There was very greedy man called Kapa. Kapa wanted wife of another man. One day when Kapa and husband fished, Kapa killed husband and told woman that husband drowned. Woman cried very much, and Kapa stayed near her. Soon Kapa took woman for wife, and lived in lodge of dead man. He lowered his voice dramatically. Memelose of husband come to lodge at night, and sing to wife with sound of frog. And here Cruxo made a frog sound. Memelose tell wife story, true story, that he was killed. Tell wife to look for his skull on beach. Next morning, wife goes to beach, and there is skull on sand, smiling at her. Cruxo placed his hands under his chin and tilted his head to the side, showing his teeth. While Kapa, out gambling, wife put skull under lodge. Then what happened? I asked eagerly. He arched his hand. Terrible storm, and water come up to lodge and drag lodge into bay, and Kapa drowned. Next morning, everyone sees skull on beach in same place where wife found it, and no husband had revenge. I shivered, hearing about a malevolent ghost was... Hearing about a malevolent ghost was doing nothing to soothe my nerves. Good story, Jehu complimented. I'll have to remember that one. Boston Jane, you tell Memelose's story, Cruxo prompted. Well, I do know one ghost story, I said. I heard it when I was at Miss Hepplewhite's Academy. This ought to be good, Jehu said, clearly trying to lighten the mood. Wait, don't tell me. It's a tale about a man who died from holding a fork the wrong way. He mimed stabbing himself in the heart with a fork. Very amusing, I said. It's a story about a young lady called Clara. She was kind and thoughtful and obedient and good-tempered. Good-tempered, eh? Jehu interrupted. What color hair did she have? I don't know, red, I suppose. Sounds a lot like you. Oh, you're insufferable. Brown hair, then. It doesn't matter. I took a deep breath and continued. Clara took dancing lessons from a handsome young man called Ned. Clara fell in love with Ned, and for months never dared to express her true feelings, until one day when he arrived at lessons with a bouquet of flowers and he declared his love for her. She confessed her own affection for him, and they happily promised themselves to each other. Ned gave her a token of their secret love, a gold locket. Pretty good for a dancing teacher, Jehu commented. And she gave him a ribbon from her hair, I said. Then one day while out walking, Clara saw Ned kissing another girl. And this other girl was wearing the very ribbon Clara had given Ned. Poor Clara was so startled that she ran straight into the middle of Chestnut Street and was struck and killed by an oncoming carriage. Cruxo whistled low. That's not much of a ghost story, Jehu teased. What does the ghost do, come back and waltz? I ignored him. From that day forward, Ned's life fell apart. He could hear Clara crying outside his window at night. He couldn't sleep, and his health failed. He grew haggard and pale, and one by one, he lost his students. She sounds like a real nag, Jehu quipped lightly, but it infuriated me. She was cheated by a cruel, heartless man, I shouted. Finish story, Cruxo ordered. I took a deep, calming breath. Ned started to see her everywhere he went. Finally, he took to his bed and never got up. He died, Jehu asked. Yes, and it said that you can sometimes see the two of them dancing on Chestnut Street in the early dawn hours. He should have changed name. She not find him then, Cruxo said, nodding to himself. That's a terrible story, Jehu said in a disgusted voice. What do you mean? It's a very romantic story. She forgave him, and now they're together forever, I explained. Sounds like a raw deal to me, spending eternity with some nag who drove you to your death, he mocked. At least it's better than marrying some man who only wants you so he can get more land, I shot back. Who said anything about marriage, Jehu said blandly. I wouldn't marry you if you were the last man alive. You're just as bad as William. When I marry, it shall be to a proper gentleman. Crooksow's eyes flickered back and forth between us. A gentleman? At this, Jehu laughed coldly. I think we are all acquainted with your good luck in finding gentlemen. I glared at him. Well, you're certainly not a gentleman. Do you think this scar on my cheek makes me no gentleman? He demanded. I see you staring at it all the time. You obviously don't understand true love, I snapped. You mean dying's the only way to find true love? Don't be a featherhead. Don't call me a featherhead. I'll call you whatever I please. Who are you to order me around? He grabbed up his pack and pushed his hat low over his eyes. I'm a lady and I expect to be treated as such. You're a smelly pest, that's what you are. Well, you're a foul-mouthed, ill-tempered, ne'er-do-well. I can't even believe I'm stuck in a cave with you. Well, you aren't, Jehu shouted back. Not anymore. And with that, he grabbed McCarty's rifle, stalked to the mouth of the cave, and without a backward glance, he strode out into the storm and was swallowed by the snow. Good riddance, I shouted at him. Well, had a little fight. I'll see you next time.